Hey all, today we are going to continue our discussion of coordinate planes and things that happen in the coordinate plane, and we are going to talk about segments, little pieces of a line, and specifically we're going to talk about how to find the middle or the midpoint of a segment. So if I look at this coordinate plane that I have here on the left, I have a segment. It's a segment because there's a beginning and the end. We call these 2 points endpoints. They are points that are on the end of the segment, and a segment is a piece of a line. So lines go on forever. Segments don't. They have a place where they begin and a place where they end, and again, we call those places endpoints. And so what we want to do is find the midpoint. The midpoint is directly in the middle of the 2 endpoints. So the quickest way to travel from one endpoint to the other would be along the segment. But if we could only move left, right, up, and down, the midpoint would be in the middle of my trip, left and right, and the middle of my trip, up and down. So if I'm traveling from this endpoint to the other, and I have to go horizontally, I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. And so the middle of that, the middle of 5 units would be 1, 2, and a half. So if I got there and I go up, I can find my midpoint. Same thing up and down. To get up to this point, I'd have to go up 3 units. And so half of 3 units is 1 and a half. That would be somewhere in here. And if we went over to our line, we'd meet that yellow point that we found earlier. That's called our midpoint. It's exactly in the middle of our 2 endpoints. And so we can find those coordinates. Those coordinates, they're in the middle of our lines here. The coordinates of my midpoint are -1 and a half, -2 and a half. And so that's one way to find a midpoint, by just counting. So it's sort of like when we found slope. These red swoops and these green swoops would be what we would do to find the slope. To find the midpoint, we would do halfway, go up to the point. And our answer is always going to be in parentheses. It's always going to look like a coordinate. And so there'll always be 2 numbers, an x and a y. So reminder that the first number is an x. That tells us its location in the left or right direction. And then the second number is our y. Tells us the location in the up and down direction. And so my method for finding a midpoint is to take 2 coordinates and I would write them like this, stacked. And these are my 2 endpoints, and so maybe I'd call that E1 and E2. You don't have to. And I'm going to look for my midpoint. It should be in the middle, so I'm going to write it in the middle, and I'll call it M for midpoint. And so really what I'm doing, like I did when I counted, was I'm trying to find the place in the middle in both directions. And so what I'm looking for this number is what number is in the middle of -6 and -10. And so if I'm having to count from -6 to -10, I have to count -6 goes to -7, that's 1, -8, that's 2, -9, that's 3, -10, that's 4. So to get from here to here, it's 4 units. And so halfway would be 2 units, so -6 to -7, -7 to -8, that's 2 units. That makes the middle number -8. And I hope you can see -8 is right in the middle of -6 and -10. So that's the x value of my midpoint. To get from -3 to 7, I'm going to have to count 4 units again. -4, -5, -6, -7. And so to get to the midpoint, I should count from -3 2 units. -4, -5. And so there is my midpoint. If I were to graph those three things, then those that coordinate -8, -5 would be in the middle. So let me do that real quick on Desmos and I'll show you. So as you can see, I graphed those 3 points by adding them to a table, and I hope you'd notice that it looks like that middle point, -8, -5, is right in the middle. If I were to draw this segment, this -8, -5 would be right in the middle. And as you can see, I had to count 1, 2 to get there, and then I count up 1, 2, and there you have the midpoint. So you can always also check these on Desmos. You can put them in a table and check to make sure that you've actually got the correct midpoint. So again, I use the stacking method. It doesn't matter which one is on top and which one is on the bottom. And then I like to say that in the middle is going to be my midpoint. And it's a good idea to label these. Again, you don't have to. I'm not making you, but it's not wrong if you don't. But it gives you, just keeps reminding you that those 2 points in blue there are end points, and we're looking for the middle point, and that's why I'm putting it in between them. And so if I'm going to count from -4 to 9, I have to count up -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so that is 13 away to get from -4 to +9. And so we divide 13 in half. We have to cut it in half because we got to go halfway, and that's going to give us a fraction, and that's okay. That's 6.5. So to get from -4 to our midpoint, we have to count up 6.5 units, and that's going to take us to 2.5. To get from -8 to -4, we are counting 4 units, and so that means to get to our midpoint, we have to count 2 units. So -8 to -7, -7 to -6. And we have to go in the right direction. We wouldn't want a number that's not between these two things. And this is going to take some practice to get used to, and so that's why we will do practice in class. We're just finding the numbers that are in the middle of the two values. And so our midpoint here is 2.5 or 2.5, that would be fine, -6. We can do something similar if we know one endpoint and we know the midpoint of a segment and we want to find the other endpoint. So in these examples, I'm going to do the same process where I stack my coordinates. And I'm going to label them. That's one endpoint. That's my midpoint. I'm looking for my other endpoint. And so I'm going to do some counting again. To get from -8 to 1, I have to count up 9. And so that means to get from my midpoint to my next endpoint, I have to count up 9 more. So from 1, I count up 9. That's the same as adding 9. I get 10. To get from 1 to -9, I'm counting down 10. You can say 10 down. So that means I have to count down 10 more. Counting down is the same as subtracting, so counting down 10 from -9 would be -19. So that means if I were to plot this segment, this would be my original endpoint. That would be the midpoint, and now I found the other end, the place where this segment stops, at 10, -19. So one more time, I'm going to stack my coordinates. And it's a good idea to label them as an endpoint or a midpoint, just to remind yourself what it is you're looking for. And so if I have to count from 6 to 6, I'm counting 0 spaces. So if I count 0 spaces again, that means I'm still at 6. So that means these points are stacked in some way, and they all have the same x value. That's okay. Lots of points have the same x value. To get from 10 to -9, I have to count down 19. And so to get to my other endpoint from my midpoint, I'm going to count down 19 more. And that's going to give me -28. And so there I have my other endpoint. I do hope that if you had any questions while I was going through these, finding a midpoint or using the midpoint to find an endpoint, that you ask one of us for help. Also, make sure that you wait until the end of this lesson, watch the whole thing, and then answer the questions at the end. If you have questions while you're trying to go through those, please feel free to ask for help. Take your time on these. Good luck.